Welcome, everyone, to Students of Life, the podcast where we chat with people about how their education has applied to their lives personally, professionally, and beyond. This week, we are joined by Maria Grima, who recently became an environmental policy analyst contractor on the Operations and Regulatory Services team at NOAA's Office of Sustainable Fisheries. Maria graduated from Stony Brook University with both her bachelor's in environmental studies and her master's in marine sciences. And Maria, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's a beautiful day. I'm thankful for AC on this hot day in particular.
It's funny you say that because my podcast recording studio, if I can call it that, has had an AC malfunction.
Oh no.
So yeah, I'm running a fan system at the moment, and it is it's not up to par. Let's just say that. Yeah,
Mm.
and I may or may not be already in a bathing suit to go swimming later for that reason because it's hard this time of year to not have AC for sure.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great plan.
I think it is. Yeah, I think that's my perfect ideal workday. Do a podcast, go swimming at the beach. Can't go wrong with that, right?
No.
So, anyways, yeah, I wanted to have you on the podcast because, of course, you took my class. Geez, a while ago now, probably, right? Do you
Yes.
remember how long ago that was? I don't even remember.
Well, you know what I did before this podcast? I pulled up my Digication website
Oh, nice. Very
and I
nice.
was reading through a bunch of my old papers that I wrote in your class and
Oh,
giving myself a good laugh.
I should have
And
done that. I should have looked those up. Yeah. Wow.
Um, seems to be 2014. I think I had you in my
Wow.
first semester as a freshman.
That might have been my first class, actually.
Really?
I'm not even kidding. I think that was the first semester I taught. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Wow. All right. Well, testament to how great of a student you were, and obviously how great of a professor I am. That look at us now. Still crushing it
Yes.
these years later. But yeah, I wanted to have you on the podcast because obviously I talk about this a lot on the podcast. How it's so interesting to talk to students who have graduated. They've gone on to do so many different interesting things in so many different fields, and I've been in communication with you obviously over the years because I myself am a huge, I guess you could call me a beach ocean clean up advocate. I don't know what my official title along those lines is, but I love doing conservation work, beach cleans, those types of events. I organize a lot of those, and of course, you in the field of marine sciences, it's always great to see what you're sometimes maybe posting on social media or talking about, because that's how I learn so much more. So yeah, I was kind of curious starting with that. I think if you want to just tell us a little bit about the type of work that you do now, maybe how you got into that, and what you maybe like or find interesting about all of that.
Yeah. Um, it's been quite a journey for me, and most of that journey was at Stony Brook.
Mm.
Once I started in 2014, I never really left.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I got my undergrad in 2014, and then I stayed on with a lab that I interned at, worked there for a year, and then did my master's there. And then I worked there for a year again. And now I'm in my position as a policy analyst contractor. Um, and before, I would say I was doing more science kind of work. I was doing restoration hands-on with the local Shinnecock Bay Restoration Program, if you're familiar with them. I see sometimes that we follow the same people on social media, so
Oh
we
yeah.
definitely have mutual contacts, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny
Um,
how those worlds overlap when you're doing, one thing and another, and there is a lot of that crossover on social media.
yes, yes. And I always love seeing your posts as well. Um, but yeah, so I was doing science research, mostly hands-on work. I occasionally worked with global marine protected areas. So this was more on the policy end. Um, and it was more through the UN or for specific countries. Like I worked on a publication mapping out all of the marine protected areas that were available in China. So that kept me busy for a while.
Yeah, that sounds like it's something that could take up some time. Yeah.
Yeah, it took a long time, but it was worth it. And now I'm doing policy contracting work. Basically, I support the Regulatory Services Division of the Office of Sustainable Fisheries, and I and my team take a look at pretty much any document that has to do with federal waters and regulations, and we edit it. So your class actually has been
Oh, wow.
particularly helpful to me because I am now an editor for Ocean Rules.
I knew it. I knew it would come in handy, our
Yes,
writing
it did.
skills. Yeah.
I think I have thoughtful writing on my bookcase,
That's
the book
amazing.
from your class. I
Wow.
think I'm looking at it right now.
That's amazing. That's a good one. I like that book. Yeah.
Yes. We
Wow.
actually had two copies for a while because Nathaniel had his too.
Right. Yeah, that's true. You would have the multiple copies. Oh, that's so cool. I love that. I have to tell I know the author of it. He used to teach at Stony Brook for
Oh,
for many years, so I'll tell him that it's still out there.
it is.
That's
It's on
great.
my bookshelf in Massachusetts.
I mean, that's spreading influence. That's amazing.
Mhm.
Wow. So, God, there's so much there. It's interesting to hear sort of these different, I don't know what to call them, realms that you've been involved in, maybe, and how they are categorized within your field. But it always stands out to me as really interesting because I sort of feel this way career wise, and I think it's largely true for many people in many fields that I think, and I see this with my undergrads a lot, they go into a field of study, a major, thinking, okay, this is my career track. I'm going to become a doctor, right? I'm going to become a, certain type of professional. And it's sometimes like a very narrowed purview. It's like there's this one lane, this one avenue, and that's sort of the final outcome that they're planning to reach. But with so many of these different areas of study, you really don't know where they develop. And it's interesting how they develop and change over time. I use this example with my computer science students a lot of times that, well, computer science didn't exist not that long ago. So it's not surprising that like a lot of the jobs within that field, it's like you might start your studies in college as an undergrad thinking, oh, I can get a job in computer science doing this. And by the time you graduate, that job's either gone or there's something new or different that it's like, oh, I can do that, or I really want to do that, or I really rather do that. And so thinking about something like marine sciences is interesting to me because obviously, I mean, I would assume marine sciences have been around for a long time, but I mean, was that something that you were studying when you started marine science, and whether or not is that something that thinking about where you've gone with your career experiences and where you are now, is that the track that you had planned, or is it something that kind of manifested where if you were to look back at Maria in 2014, you would say, oh, you have no idea where you're going to end up, or some idea?
So definitely 2014 Maria, at least my first semester, had no idea what she was doing. She had gone to
You had some
Stony
idea.
Brook.
The papers were great.
Yeah, go German or go home. In hindsight, not the best title.
That's right. Oh, you wrote that's still to this day one of my favorite research papers. It was about how German shepherds are the best dog, right? The
Yes.
fact that I remember that means that it's a great paper, trust me. Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
Um, but okay, so 2014 Maria thought she was going to be a doctor, not because she wanted to be, but because that's what everybody goes to Stony Brook University for. Um, but I met a bunch of really cool people where I was living in the dorms at Stony Brook. And they kind of were telling me all about their majors within the School of Marine and Atmospheric Science and Sustainability Studies. And I was like, I really liked my AP Environmental Science class. And I loved that teacher as well. And we were still like in contact at that point. So I made the leap and I decided I wanted to major in environmental studies and get as much hands-on experience as possible. And hands-on experience at that time was pretty hard to come by if you weren't looking for it. So I ended up doing a bunch of study abroad programs. When I say a bunch, I mean two, but
That's
I
two more
went
than I did. Yeah.
um I went to Kenya and I studied human origins. I had originally signed up for their sustainability school because I thought, oh, what a better introduction to the field, than to study sustainability in Kenya. But they actually didn't have enough students to run it at that time. So they smushed me in with the human origins kids. And honestly, that was still so fun. Had the time of my life, learned so much. And their system of teaching was like so effective. Instead of taking 5 classes at once, we took one class for 2 weeks, and that's all you took. Like all
Mm.
day long was that class. And they were hands-on activities like paleontology or archaeology. Um, so that was really fun. And then at that point, I was like, oh, I'm going to be an archaeologist because this is the most fun I've ever had in the classroom. And then I came back and, I took a whole nother semester at Stony Brook through the winter. You know how that can be, the
Oh
great
yeah.
Stony Brook winters.
Oh,
And I
I
was
know the
like,
Stony Brook Winter course. Yeah.
oh my God, what am I doing with my life? Do I actually want to be a paleontologist? I was removed at this point
Mm.
from it because I had been, home for the winter. And then I signed up to go to Madagascar because I was like, you know what? I got to get out of here. Got to do it. Got to leave. And it was so fun. I got so much like hands-on stuff in. Um, I wanted to try and get a taste of working in all of the different realms. I used to say biomes, but that's not a really good example because the ocean's not really a biome. But
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Right.
yeah, I tried out the desert, I tried out the rainforest.
Right.
In between those two opportunities, I did semester by the sea in Southampton. And I only did that because it knocked out the marine science minor.
Mm.
And I had a friend who was doing it. So I was like, this sounds like a really cool, experience. And I know myself by now after doing this study abroad program that this is how I learn best is through hands-on learning. So let's just do that. It doesn't matter what the subject matter is. Um,
Right.
I remember on the first day of class, I didn't even know what a dorsal fin was. And everyone looked at me like, dude, what? How are you here? I was like, I don't know. What the
They're like, get with the program.
yeah, with the program. And yeah, so I didn't know anything about marine science before
Mm.
I did that. And that ended up being the field that I got into. um yeah, most of my opportunities have just been in marine science and they've been guiding me down this path. And I was offered to basically get funded for a master's project in the marine science department. So I was like, I got to take this. This is an awesome opportunity. Um, but yeah, it was kind of happenstance. Like I really enjoy my work and I wanted to do something in the environmental realm, but it was a journey getting here and I had no idea where the ship was sailing.
Pun intended.
Yeah.
Well, that sort of speaks to exactly what I was saying earlier, right? This idea that you went in with a totally different mindset, even, and it's interesting. Sometimes students have that mindset very concrete, and others, I notice it by, I don't know, even sometimes weeks into the first semester, they're thinking, I can't do these undergraduate medical courses, like,
Yeah.
this isn't gonna this just isn't gonna happen for however many more years, right? Um, yeah, so I feel like a lot of students, they come to these realizations over time, but it's interesting to really hear about how your experience, I think, really speaks to the fact, and it's kind of, I feel like it's almost a devalued aspect of college and the college experience at this point. It's almost sort of like people kind of make fun of it, the idea of, oh, you go to college if you don't know what to do, or it's a waste of time, if you want to do something, just sort of study it or figure it out or start working in the field. But at the same time, this is sort of what I think in part college should be. It should be meeting other people, new people who are doing different things and are interested in different things and can sort of help you realize that, oh yeah, maybe I should try this, right? It's sort of that value, that inherent, I think, focus of thinking, well, what if I try this and learn more about it and see what there is to it and what further pathways or connections sort of develop from there. So that's really interesting to hear because that sounds like such a generative experience in terms of kind of even along the way still, maybe at certain points you did have a better or clearer sense of where you wanted to go or what you wanted to do, but it still continued to develop. Like there were still new things where then you tried that and you're like, oh, maybe I should continue to do this, right? At one point you're planning on being a paleontologist now or an archaeologist, and but then again that sort of journey, that those pathways continue to develop. So that's really interesting to hear, because I hear that again so much at Stony Brook with medical students, as well as like engineers. But it's interesting to hear that from an environmental or sustainability studies perspective, because me personally, that's something that I'm so interested in. And I don't have a ton of students who do that compared to those other areas of study. So when I meet those students, I'm so excited, and they reach out to me too because they find I do all this beach clean conservation stuff, and I'm like, oh man, we got to talk, So I can sort of point them sometimes in directions, and again, I'm not a marine biologist myself, but you never know who you talk to where they can sort of point you. It's really interesting, I think, and I think, as I said before, that's something that we really should be valuing more with college education. The fact that that's become sort of mocked, I feel almost in a way, is kind of very very disappointing to me. I don't like it.
Yes, honestly, like I dread to know the Maria that never dormed at college, because she would be so, like, I don't want to say close-minded, but I was exposed to so many important things in college that I just would have never gotten in my hometown, like
Mm,
education aside, like cultural values. Um, and I just think it's so important. I advocate whenever possible for kids to dorm.
mm,
I lived in Nassau. I had no reason to dorm at Stony Brook.
mm.
I
Right.
could have
Yeah.
taken the LIRR, but I wanted the experience and like the kind of like cultural awakening that I got, on top of the educational awakening that I got.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point too. The idea that when you're in a community like that, it's odd. It's almost like a I mean, I guess you can call Stony Brook an international university more than anything, right? If you think about the student population and the people that you meet there, it's really fascinating to me. Where, I mean, I just look at the makeup of one of my classes, and it's very representative of the human population, which I think is, again, an undervalued factor, that you can have this university in a specific place. And if you think about demographically, it's relatively representative of the rest of the world, where you have, a lot of people from Asia, you have a lot of people from the Middle East, you have other people from all over the country, you have some people obviously from the United States, but some of them are first generation. Some of them, maybe their families have been around for certain amounts of years longer than others. So you really do get this ability, you get this opportunity to, as you were saying, sort of meet people and see cultures that you just wouldn't. It's not even that you wouldn't be exposed to them, you wouldn't be exposed to like the daily lives, I think, of
Yes.
these people, right? I think that's, something that's really interesting about it too. And that's sort of like you're saying, if you didn't dorm, you would have maybe seen these people, but you wouldn't have been maybe in as close quarters with them, I guess, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And honestly, even seeing them, I mean, my town was like 1 square mile, like very homogeneous, like
Hmm.
middle
Yeah.
class white people. And there was
Hmm.
like almost no diversity. Um, so it was very important, and it was a great experience to come to Stony Brook and see, a place that's more representative of what the world actually looks like.
Right, and that's what it comes down to, right? It's
Yeah.
the reality that the world is a much more comprehensive, I don't know what we can call it, tapestry of
Yes.
different types of people, different types of cultures, different types of experiences too. It's really interesting. It challenges your own worldview too, but I think it in turn helps develop it. Like it almost, do you feel that way? It makes you more like, forget about changing your views. I think it just makes you more of an empathetic person in a lot of ways, right?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Like
Yeah.
you aren't just seeing these people around, which is a step up from where I was at, but you are interacting with them, you're becoming friends with them, you're supporting them, they're supporting you. So you develop a bond and you start, to realize a deeper empathy in the situation.
Yeah, it's interesting as well as you're saying that, because I was thinking about, we were talking earlier with social media, and I don't know about you, but I feel as if I hate being this guy who's saying that, oh, it gets worse and worse. I feel like with social media and just toxicity on social media, but I do. There's something about it, and again, this is why I like, coming back from COVID and being in person and actually having to like meet with people and work with people. I like so much better, because I still notice it on social media where, I mean, people, I feel as if this is true more and more. They comment on my posts, and it's just the most toxic, negative, just trolly stuff, and it's all just sort of. I mean, again, this isn't everybody. There's so many great people I've met, posting about conservation work and the environment and stuff. But you do get these, and it's always strangers. It's always these just random people who you don't know, you've never met, and they're saying these things, and it's like, you would never walk up to me and say this. That's insane. But the anonymity of it, it creates this. There's this distance, and it just always like worries and frustrates me with social media, and how it almost sometimes can like isolate people more in a way. I feel like. I don't know what
Yeah.
that has to do with what we were saying, but you just made me think of that as we were talking.
Yeah.
Do you see that at all with like? I think my point is that I've seen it with posting environmental conservation stuff. So like, for example, I posted something the other day, and all these just randos started commenting how much of a terrible person I was for dumping my
Like,
cigarette butts all over the beach, and how, well, I just want attention and I don't really care about the environment. And I'm thinking like, oh yeah, my millions of followers and millions of dollars from doing all this work, that's clearly why I'm in it, right? But like, do you get that at all with sometimes like conservation stuff, or have you been pretty fortunate with that? Like, do you find that sometimes like trolls and stuff like that?
so I definitely have had trolls,
Hmm.
like in many of the things that I post, especially on Facebook. I hardly use Facebook anymore because I
Yeah,
just simply cannot deal with the comments sometimes.
I agree. Yeah,
Um,
I
I
use it to
feel,
just post events. That's it. Yeah.
yeah, no, I feel like it was less conservation kind of trolling because I think even the most climate change skeptic type person on my friends list, like, you know, will just grumble, and like leave it be. Like there's no real back and forth and passion behind it. This is a hoax, but
Right. Yeah.
I actually, it's funny because in person once I actually had that happen.
Oh,
Um
really?
I was recording for my radio show, Moment of Science, in the WUSB studio at Stony Brook
Hmm.
a couple of years ago, several years ago now. And I was talking with somebody about climate change and carbon dioxide. And I don't remember the specifics of what was going on, but all of a sudden, someone comes through to the studio and is like, this is a hoax. Carbon is good. Like trees are carbon. And I'm like, what are you saying, man? And like we were on air and I was like, what?
That's wild.
It was completely unhinged. But that is the most memorable troll that I've ever experienced relating to conservation.
So that's my point, though. That's a great anecdote, because that's exactly what I'm saying. Where to do what these people do on social media in person is so insane.
It
And
is.
that example is proof of that, where you would all be sitting there thinking, this person is just completely nuts.
Yes.
This is not how you have a productive conversation. If you disagree, this is not a reasonable way to disagree that's going to convince people to actually listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Yeah. It's something.
It's definitely something. That's an interesting story. Yeah, I mean, you always again, it's not like, I don't think social media creates wacky people necessarily. I just think it doesn't help, or it can like make it easier for wacky people to, say or do wacky things, maybe for better or worse. But as per your, example, there's still plenty of people who can do wacky stuff in the real world, right?
Yes, for real.
That's
You
for
gotta
sure.
vet those people
Yeah.
real good. Don't
Yeah.
look them in the eye.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's probably a good policy. Um, yeah, it's funny. Because I feel like I meet a lot of interesting people sometimes beach cleaning because I mean you have credentials, you're a marine science person. I'm a guy who cleans beaches, so I get people coming up to me all the time. I had a guy, I think it was a couple days ago, I was cleaning the beach, and I am a crazy, I should clarify, I am a crazy person because I was cleaning the beach at 5:30 in the morning because I'm a crazy person. That's what I do. And this guy, but this guy comes because I'm cleaning cigarette butts along the edge of the parking lot because I was trying to make a video about how cigarette butts, as I know well, they're like the number one most littered item or whatever, all that terrible stuff. So I wanted to do a video on picking up all these cigarette butts, and this guy just comes flying through the parking lot, slams on his brake, like slides right in front of me, and he goes, "Hey, nice picker." And I'm like, "Yeah, thank you. It's a trash picker." He's like, "Yeah, great work." And then he starts talking to me about how, like, yeah, he cleans up too. And he's like, "We should split up the beach." And I go, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, I found 20s, I found hundreds. You take that side, I'll take that side, and we'll split." And I'm thinking, okay, why don't you go start down there and I'll start and continue that way. But cool, man. Like, I loved his enthusiasm, but I just couldn't quite make sense of exactly what he was saying. So that was good wacky, which,
Yeah,
I wonder if he's, maybe comment on my stuff too. Who knows? We don't know.
nice.
But I forget the point of that story too. But
We were talking about social media and
right.
if people are more unhinged, they are in
Oh, okay.
person.
Right. So yeah, I don't. So I think my curiosity is, what is that guy saying on social media? Like,
Yes.
I have
Oh
no
my
idea.
gosh.
I
He's
have
probably
no
one of
idea.
those people that types in all caps and like does the million exclamation points after every like word that he says.
It's entirely possible. Because again, that has to be somebody who's actually out there, right? So
Oh, I see those people commenting on stuff. It's just
yeah.
thankfully not my stuff.
Well, that's what I. Yeah, exactly. That's what I typically want to try to avoid as well. Yeah. So I mean, if I think about, the work that you do now too, because I know you mentioned that recently, right? You've relatively recently shifted into this new role of yours.
Yes,
Yeah.
about a month ago.
Wow. Okay. And so that I know you mentioned is doing in part editorial work, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would say most of it is editorial work.
Wow. So how's that going? I mean, I'm very curious about that because obviously I don't know if we mentioned, but you took my writing class. I mean, I would love to ask, like, are there any lessons from our writing class that still sort of draw upon or you think about or you've developed into what you use now for something like this in any way, shape, or form?
Honestly, I guess two things pop into my head, and sometimes it comes in your voice, which is kind of creepy, but
Oh man, that I got to be charging for that. That's like that means it's like patented. It's like branded, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I remember in my class, you made a big point about commas versus semicolons. Because I don't know who, maybe it was me. We were semicolon happy, and you're like, no, this is what you use semicolons. And so there's
Yeah.
so many things I edit to semicolons and from semicolons that are just incorrect. And
Oh
I
really?
do think of our class, yes.
Wait, so does it bother you when you see them?
Yes, I'm like,
Oh,
this is
that's
wrong.
so I've ruined your.
Yes.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Yeah. And what was the other one that I was gonna say? It
How,
might come back to me.
how great. Well, I mean, I can say about the the semicolons versus commas rule. That is something I still teach actually. And the first question I ask now is, I say, raise your hand if you know how to use a semicolon. and I would say usually in a class of 20 whatever students, it's like two maybe, and they're usually wrong. So then the question is like, who cares? They're like, well, even if we learn how to use it, why do you use it when you use it? You know, how and when would be a good reason to use it? So I actually do still teach that, but that's so funny that that's something that stuck with you. But of course, you do notice it. Like I see it. I mean, I see it in writing all the time where it's either used incorrectly or it's, just used in a way where I'm like, I don't see the connection here
Yeah.
between maybe what you're trying to do. It's a very subtle technique. Like it's not an easy what would you call it? It's a form of punctuation convention. I don't know, tool to use. So I'm still trying to figure out how to teach it because I use it in my published writing, obviously. But it's not like I use it all the time. It's at very deliberate points. So I sort of, I'll probably use more of those moving forward as examples where I'm like, oh, hey, I'm trying to draw a contrast here or something like that, trying to link these ideas. Because grammatically, yeah, you know, you could have a lot of semicolons if you wanted to from a technical perspective, but it's kind of like exclamation points, right? Like theoretically, you could put those at the end of every sentence.
That was what I was gonna say.
Oh, really?
Yes, I
Oh,
was
wow.
exclamation point happy, and you're like, Maria, one max. That's it.
Did I say one max?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah,
I was
make
like,
it count. Yeah, make it count. That's funny. And these are these things that you notice in the work that you do now? Like you see these things like semicolons and exclamation marks.
in federal documents, not really the
Yeah,
exclamation marks, but
yeah.
I do I don't want to come off as rude in emails. So
Hmm.
I'll just like put an exclamation point at the end of every sentence and then I'll be rereading it and I'm like, nope, this is not good,
Yeah,
Maria. You sound like a crazy person. And then I'll
yeah.
I'll find the one sentence to use an exclamation mark and then
Hmm.
I'll take the rest out.
It's funny you say that because I tend to overuse them in emails too. And this is something I teach sometimes. We'll go over email writing for that reason, and I'll show, oh, if you don't have any, it can almost sometimes sound passive aggressive or
Yes.
sarcastic or something. It's so weird how your expectation of tone changes by, again, who the audience is, what the format is that you're, communicating through. And I use this example all the time. I'm like, yeah, academic writing is great, but it's really to try to teach you genre and audience. And applying those lenses to other situations, whether they're personal or professional, and those types of communications overlap, right? It's like you could send a personal text or a professional text, to an employee or your superior, your boss, whoever. And same thing with emails or other types of correspondences. And it's like, yeah, you should be taking into account, well, what is the situation, right? What are the expectations? Like, what is their vibe in terms of, how they maybe communicate? So, it's all very, I think, transferably applicable in those ways, right?
Yes, 100%. And I do try even in emailing, if unless it's someone I know, like going back and forth with like you in a casual way. But
Hmm.
like for example, I was emailing someone on the Stony Brook publication team question mark about you and your tennis balls
Oh wow,
a few
yeah,
years ago,
yeah,
and I was pitching them your story for Earthstock, and
yes,
it
right.
ended up being so formally written that I basically ghost wrote the article that they published from you because they were like, "Oh,
Oh
this is
really?
great copy." So it does come in handy to
Yeah,
speak and write in a proper grammatical way.
right. And for those of you who are wondering what Maria means by tennis balls, uh, as per my earlier point about how I'm a crazy person and I do the beach clean work, I started collecting tennis balls, and then I found a lot of tennis balls, and then I somehow was talking to Wilson Sporting Goods, and then I somehow got a bunch of tennis ball recycle bins from them and recycled 1,000 tennis balls that I found while beach cleaning, which is utter madness again. But like I said, there's a lot of crazy people on social media. I like to think I'm very happy with my version of craziness on social media, so that's my version of it, which I think is good. I'm happy
Yeah,
with.
I love your posts.
Yeah,
They're fun and educational. I always get the number of litter items you found wrong in
yeah,
your guessing games. It's always more than I expect.
yeah. Do you like those? Because I like
I do.
posting like, okay, guess how many cigarette butts I collected. Did you see the cigarette butt one from the other day?
I saw it. I don't. Was it like 141 cigarette butts?
Well, it was a 1 hour challenge, so I wanted to see how many. That's what I was doing the other day when I met that interesting fellow
Oh,
at the beach. I wanted to see how many cigarette butts I could clean up in 1 hour, and I got. I think I might have posted the wrong number because the final number in my full YouTube video was 452
oh
in
my
an
gosh.
hour. Yeah, and that
I
was the one
probably
that
got
I.
that wrong.
Well, and so a lot of people guessed. They were like, I don't know, 100, and I was like, wrong, 452.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
See, yep,
But that was the
always
one where the
made a
trolls were
mistake.
like, "Why is he pouring his cigarette butts on the beach?" And some of my followers, they were like, "You idiot! Like he clearly didn't just have 400 cigarette butts to dump on the beach." Um,
It's
but yeah, that was a crazy one. That was a lot. That was usually if I find in an hour bottle caps or something. Yeah, maybe I found 100, and that's obviously crazy too. So 450 was pretty wild. But as you can imagine, all of those along parking lots and stuff, people just flicking them, that sort of
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and the garbage bins. It depends where you are, but some of them have holes in it, right?
Mm,
So a cigarette butt's gonna come out of
mm.
that hole. Other times there's no closed top on your bin, so your garbage bag like turns inside out and
Yeah.
sprays all of the light materials everywhere. So yeah, there's a lot of issues and reasons why cigarette butts end up where they do. But I was curious, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you been saving anything to make an art installation? I know I attended one of your art shows a while back.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I have to. Oh man, I found Okay, let me explain. I'm getting ahead of myself. No, because you just triggered in me something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I just haven't done it because it's so bizarre and so crazy that it's even too much for me.
Oh,
And that is, I want to make. I don't know if I'll do it this year because. Okay, okay. So what I want to do is I'm trying to think how to explain it and not sound completely nuts, but
sorry,
that's
I'm
not.
taking off my judgment glasses.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. So I'm just going to explain it the way that it is, which is I want to collect a bunch of trash and make for Halloween a Plastic Man outfit like Iron Man or Trash Man outfit. I want to be Trash Man or Plastic Man, and just I'm pretty sure I could do it. And I say I found a broken water gun that I could probably fix, but I threw it out just
Mm,
yesterday. So I want to find stuff like that, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I could find enough. Pretty much everything. I find everything beach cleaning, right? I find fishing line, I find ropes, I find springs and stuff. I could rig, gear to shoot stuff if I
okay.
if I started collecting it and just have that be my Halloween costume. I'm Plastic Trash Man instead of Iron Man because I go out there and try to save the beaches. So your reaction, please.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, I think it's wild, but in a good way. Like, I love that idea. I
Okay.
absolutely love it. And I have thought of similar things. Like, I almost once went as a mermaid and like a zombie mermaid, and I was going to cover myself with the trash that I found at the beach too. So we
Oh,
kind of
okay.
have the same kind of crazy wavelength going on.
Okay, so that's yeah, you're on the same similar track. There's something
Yeah.
to it. Yeah, there's definitely something to it. Okay, that's actually really reassuring because I think I told just my brother this or something, and he said, "Yeah, that's maybe a bit much, but go
No,
for it."
not much. Go
And
for it.
yeah, I might start doing that. I forget why I was explaining this, but
I
um,
asked.
that's a good reason. Um, yeah, I wanted to just in the last few minutes, because I don't want to take too much of your time up, and thank you for giving any amount of time to
Of
this
course.
particular version of madness. But in terms of marine sciences in general, because as we've been talking about, I mean, obviously, it's funny. I always tell people I don't want to be cleaning up trash. Really, I love the ocean. I love the beach. I grew up in the beach. Like I rather be swimming the whole time. That's what, as we said, I'm gonna go hopefully do later. No trash, just swim. But I'm just curious in general because I have you here and because you're so zoned into obviously the marine sciences. Is there any particular issue or challenge that stands out to you or that you find yourself even just thinking about that whether or not it is something that's often covered in the media or not so much. Obviously, we were saying cigarette butts, for example. That's a very sort of buzz issue that you do hear a lot about, and I know it's obviously an issue. But is there anything like that, or different than that is really on your mind at the moment with marine conservation or that type of work?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have a ton of things that I could say
Mm.
for this.
Yeah.
I think I'll make a general statement and say that I think that the systems in place need to change and be more user friendly and incorporate um, different kinds of knowledge than are typically considered. I know recently there's been a big push to incorporate indigenous knowledge in marine conservation, and I think that's great. I went to a conference in Vancouver um, just this past year, and I thought it was amazing how much of a focus that there was on that. And I know that NOAA has been incorporating that into their fisheries management plans. I think they have for quite a few years now, because that's something I noticed as a student, not even recently in this job. Excuse me. And but like user friendly in a way, also like practical. Like we were talking about the trash.
Mm.
Like I took some kids out to Jones Beach for a beach clean, and they wanted to throw out what they found in the trash can. And I was like, look at that trash can.
Mm.
If you put all that stuff back in the trash can, it's going to come flying right back out. And that's probably how it got here in the first place.
Hmm.
And I think they were contemplating writing a letter to the Jones Beach Management Authority, or whoever, like, please get better garbage cans. But, like, you know, there are little things that if we're just a little bit more thoughtful about, and we have an expanded awareness and we include other perspectives, like the practical perspectives of fishermen, and
Mm.
you know just even something as simple as listening to a high schooler that will write to you about a garbage can. Like I I think that it's this type of thing that needs to happen at multiple levels.
Mm. Yeah, I find as well that's always a big challenge from my perspective is that there are so many, there's so many different realities behind how different issues arise. And you can apply this to, a lot of social causes, right? There are big factors that stand out to us, but there are lots of factors as well that culminate. And this is true, I think, with ocean pollution and ocean plastic pollution, for example, where it's like I've done cleanups on the Hudson River upstate, and I'm like, oh, this makes sense why I'm finding, batteries and stuff washed up on our shores downstate because it's somehow falling to the river, right? Whether people are littering it or, you think about one tipped over garbage can times all the garbage cans over the course of a year. Well, that's stuff's going to the river. The river's coming down to, the ocean. It washes up with a storm surge or something, gets lost in reeds or something like that. It's so much more comprehensive. So yeah, that sort of need for like collective awareness and, just sort of sharing experiences, but being open to the fact that, well, it's not necessarily just only bad people going to the beach and, throwing their garbage everywhere. That's obviously not great. We see it. I mean, 4th of July weekend, which just passed, is the worst for
Yeah.
that. Like, I'm going to probably end up, as I said, when I go to the beach, picking up 4th of July debris. But I find this stuff, all year round as well. So that's not surprising either, unfortunately. So yeah, I like that that perspective too, because I think it is true. It is part of the larger reality behind. I think just the need for that collective awareness moving forward with again lots of societal issues too. But
Yes.
it's so interesting to hear about from the marine science perspective as well, because I'm sort of just on the ground as a weird guy beach cleaning, but obviously you can back me up, my my observations, which is nice.
Yes, I mean, you do have creds. You founded a beach cleaning organization. You've been beach cleaning for a while.
Yeah, it's
Like, how
been a
many
while.
years?
Probably I think I start well, what's funny is I probably started doing it like 6 7 years ago, but I only started doing like social media stuff with it maybe in the last 3 years, really like right before COVID.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make you an expert? Isn't that the rule? You do
Oh,
something
is
for
it?
7 years.
You
Maybe
do.
I'm mistaken, but that's
Uh,
what was
I th-
always in my brain.
well, I think it's like 10,000 hours or something, or and
Something.
I like 7 years better because I can do a little bit of it for 7 years and then claim I'm an expert.
Yeah.
So let's go with that.
Yeah, let's go
Um,
with that.
yeah. Yeah. Well, that's pretty much everything I wanted to ask. I did have a final question.
Sure.
I don't know if it's a really good question. It's a new question, but I'm kind of curious what you might say. So that question is,
Okay.
if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh,
You
I
didn't see
think
that
about
coming, did you?
this.
Oh, you
I
did.
think about
You
it.
did.
I think about it.
Really?
Uh, you know, before I met my husband, I would have probably said like mind reading
Hmm.
or something of that nature, because I think that it would be so cool to know what people's true intentions are.
Hmm.
But also, I like feel like it would hurt my feelings, so maybe not. Um,
You're like, actually, you know what?
yeah, it's
Don't
not my
need.
business what you're
Yeah, don't
thinking
need to know
about
that.
me. It's
Yeah,
fine.
interesting. Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
whenever I say an answer, when he asks me this question, he's like, wrong. You want it to be telekinesis. And I'm like, why? And he was like, because you can like change the atoms with your mind and you could apply it to
Hmm.
everything. Like you can make any kind of superpower you want with that. And I was like, okay. So that's my like standard answer now.
Yeah. Right. So it's almost it's like mind reading plus basically. It's just a
Yeah.
better, a more evolved version of
It's
mind reading.
it's like an evolved superpower. I don't know if it's mind reading. Maybe I said the wrong thing, and I bet you I did, but like I'm picturing that thing where you can move things with your mind and like
Yeah,
rearrange things.
I think
So
that's
like,
telekinesis. I think.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
Well, I'll have to bone up on that
Right. Well,
superpower.
if you're gonna use it, yeah, you could juggle with your mind. You could just kind of like stare at the
Yeah.
balls and they would juggle. Yeah.
And you can like go to like a molecular level and like, change things around like that. But yeah, so that's now the answer that I give.
Nice. I like that.
Okay.
That's pretty good. That's I because I don't know if I have an answer myself for that question, so that's as good of an answer as any that I can
Yeah,
think of. Yeah. Well, thank you so much
you're welcome.
for joining. I don't know if you have any final questions or thoughts.
This was really fun. I'm glad we got to catch up. It's been a while since I have seen you face to face or
Yeah.
face to face ish since we're on video chat.
Yeah.
But
Well, between COVID and the gazillion papers, it's been busy. But
yes,
yeah, hopefully soon again.
yes, I agreed.
We'll definitely talk more. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you so much again, honestly, for joining me this week. This was great, and thank you, listeners, whoever you are, wherever you are, for joining us. We hope that you've learned a thing or two, because I know I certainly have. And if you like what you hear, please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. And feel free to drop us a like or a comment to let us know what you think also. We also have new episodes every first Monday, the first Monday of every month, rather. So we would love to see you back for the next one. So until then, stay safe out there, be well, and as always, keep on learning. Oh, where's the record button? No, I'm kidding.
Oh my